The President, please be sitting. The chamber is now back in session. Before we proceed to the co-prosecutor, the chamber thanks witness very much for responding to all the questions put to him, and he helps a great deal when he is very mindful of the use of the mic. However, it would be very good and when witness slow down a little bit for the interpreters. Without further ado, the chamber would like to hand over to the prosecutor, and the chamber would like also piece of advice from the counsel concerning the time co-prosecutor need to put questions to this witness.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will finish today, this afternoon.
The President, thank you. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the bench. Mr. Yun Kim, we were talking about the arrests of the members of the Sector 505 committee. And the next issue I wanted to ask you about was whether you knew the wives, the spouses of Sector Secretary Yi and his deputy Kun. Did you know their wives?
Response. Regarding the spouses of the arrested cadres of the sector level, I don't know whether they were arrested or not, and I don't know what their fate could have been.
Let me see if I can refresh your recollection. There is a S-21 prisoner list, which is document D108/26.296. That is a list of female prisoners, and there are two people who are listed on there that I want to ask you about. One, her name is Hun Yun, alias Ken, who is identified as the member of the Sewing Unit Committee and wife of Contemptible Yi. And the list also records the presence at S-21 of Bun Lei, alias Bun, who is identified as a textile squad chief and the wife of the Contemptible Kun, deputy secretary of Sector 505. Do you recognize those names as being the spouses of Yi and Kun?
Response. Yi and Kun spouses were not someone I have known clearly. That's all I can tell.
Can you tell us whether it was common when cadres were purged that their spouses and family members were sometimes also arrested?
Response. There were some cadres who were purged and that their family and spouses were also disappeared. Ung Samun, who was the former of the security cadre in Sambo, was arrested, but his wife was not arrested. Like Chun and Chim, they were arrested, but their spouses were not arrested. In some cases, I indicated the whole family, or the husband and wives were arrested, but in some cases only the husbands and wife, husband were arrested, but wives were not arrested.
During the Democratic Kampuchea regime, did you ever hear the revolutionary slogan, "When pulling out weeds, remove them roots and all"? Did you ever hear that slogan?
Response. I heard people at the district talked about this slogan.
What did you understand it to mean?
Response. At that time, I believed that the slogan was serious in nature. For example, if a cadre was arrested, anyone who affiliated in the revolutionary movement, people would be inducted one after another. So if the person who initially inducted the first person and he was arrested, any persons who were inducted by him would also be arrested, and it's part of the association. So this is the way it happened.
Thank you, Mr. Yun Kim. We've talked about people who were arrested at the sector level in early 1978. Now I want to turn to some of the names that you've mentioned from Sambo district. And the first person that I want to ask you about, or first two people, you identified a person named Ni, who was a district security chief that then went on to be secretary or acting secretary. And you also have identified a person named Pun, who was the district security chief. Do you recall what happened to Ni and Pun in early 1978?
Response. Ni was not in charge of social action section. He was in charge of the economic section. Later on, he was the chief of the district and at the same time in charge of economic section when Pan had been transferred. Later on, Mok also came to be in charge. Ni and Pun were both in charge of both military and security because there was shortage of forces, and these people were arrested in early 1978 when Yi and Kun were arrested. Ni and Pun were eventually arrested. These two individuals escaped, but after the appeal was made, they happened to come back, but later on disappeared. But their spouses one of their spouses still survive, and I never met them anyway.
I'd like to show you a couple of entries from some S-21 prisoner lists to see if you can identify the people on this list as either Ni or Pun. And Mr. President, the first document I'd like to show to the witness is IS 16.116 at Khmer ERN 000-39750, and it is English ERN 00233-693. And to save us some time, I'd also like to give the witness question the witness about a page in document D108/26.202 at the Khmer page is 00088-655, but we can't see the ERN number, so it's page 3 of that document, and it is English ERN 00767-743. I have copies of both of those for the witness and would like to put them on the screen to ask if the witness can identify two of the people who are on this list.
The President, you may proceed. Court officer is now instructed to bring the hard copy from the prosecutor and hand it over to the witness.
And Mr. President, while they're doing that, the first document we'd like to put up on the screen is IS 16.116 and Khmer page 00039-750, if we may put that on the screen.
The President, you may proceed.
Mr. Young Kim, in the document that is identified as IS 16.116, which is a S-21 list of prisoners interrogated on the 27th of April 1978, on page 00039-750, one of the people who is identified is a Phang Ni, who is identified as the member of Sambo District, and it indicates that he entered S-21 on the 9th of April in 1978. Do you recognize this as the Ni who you have referred to in your testimony here today?
But
Response: yes, it is the Ni we are now referring to.
And in the other document that I provided to you, which is D108/26.202, and you'll want to look at the third page of this document. This is a S-21 list of prisoners interrogated on the 7th of May 1978. And one of the people who is listed on page 3 is an E. Save alias Pun, who is identified as a member of Sambo District who entered S21 on the 11th of April in 1978. Do you recognize that as the Pun who you have referred to in your testimony today?
But
Response: Yes, this is Pun that I am referring to.
You told the investigating judges that Ni and Pun were arrested and disappeared around the same time, and the lists that I've just shown you indicate that Ni entered S21 on the 9th of April 1978 and Pun entered on the 11th of April 1978. Is that consistent with the time period that you remember when these two individuals were arrested?
Response: Yes, it is. It is consistent because after 505 Sector Committee was arrested, Ni and Pun were eventually arrested.
How did you learn of the arrest of Ni and Pun?
Response: The arrest was made when I was at the meeting at the district committee. Pun and Ni were present. Actually, they had been on the run for prior to that meeting, but after an appeal was made by the committee of the district to ask them to come back, they returned and then attended the meeting.
And were they arrested at this meeting?
Response: Well, during the time when the meeting was convened, they were placed or allowed to sit in a hall or a shed, and the meeting was conducted without their presence. Later on, when the meeting was concluded, they were arrested.
And who was it that arrested them and took them away?
Response: I don't know who arrested them, but at that time Vươn was the chief and Chuk was the deputy chief of the district military who were in charge.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. You've also talked today about a individual named Tan, who was at one point the district chairman of Sambo District, and you've said later went to become the district chief in Kretchi District. And Mr. President, I'd like at this time to show the witness another document, which is IS 16.104, and the Khmer reference is 00039,737, English 00802,413. And as before, I have a copy for the witness, and we'd like to put that on the screen.
The President, you may proceed. Court officer is now instructed to bring the document from Mr. Co-Prosecutor and hand it over to the witness for examination.
The document I've handed you is a S-21 list of prisoners who were interrogated on the 11th of April in 1978. And on the Khmer ERN page 000-39737, there is an individual listed who is named Chi Hor, alias Pan, member of Kretchi district, who entered S-21 on the 17th of March 1978. Can you tell us whether that is the Pan who you've told us about today?
Response. Yes, this is Pan, and his first name is Ho. His father was Chinese when his mother was a Khoi ethnic minority. He worked as the committee of the Sambo district and later on arrested.
What can you tell us, what do you recall about the time when he was arrested and disappeared?
Response. Pan was arrested after Yi Kun had been arrested. Pan was the chief of Sambo district and then Kretchi district. Later on, they were accused of being bad cadres and placed under B3. And some of my friends told me that the cadres of the sector were arrested. Later on, Pan had also been arrested at the B3 where he had been installed to look after the prisoners.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Can you tell us, after all the cadres that we've been discussing were arrested in Kretchi sector in early 1978, who came to replace them?
Response. After the sector and district committee members were arrested at Kretchi, I heard that Moon, who was from the province, became the chief, and then Jing from the military, who came to take the position. At Sambo, there were only two people, Tawun and Chuk, but I don't know what happened to other districts.
You've indicated that many of the people who came to replace the arrested cadres came from the military. Can you tell us at all which division, whether were you aware of whether these cadres came from a certain division of the Revolutionary Army of Kampuchea?
Well,
Response. I don't know. I don't know where these people were from, whether from any particular sector or zone, but I could feel the accent in their language. They spoke in dialect.
Based on their accent, did you have some understanding of where they were from, what part of Cambodia?
Answer. I could not really understand that well. I knew that they referred to people as new.
What was your understanding as to why so many cadres from Karachi sector were arrested in the first part of 1978?
President, witness, you do not need to respond to this question. You put a question to ask for a guess or a conclusion by the witness. Your question will not be allowed.
Were you aware of fighting that took place between the Vietnamese and Democratic Kampuchea military forces in late 1977 in Karachi?
Answer. I heard about that. I heard that there was a fighting between the Cambodian and the Vietnamese forces. The military and the militia from the cooperatives were gathered, and after the fighting was over, they did not demobilize the forces yet. As in my Sambo commune, the forces were asked to assist in building the dam with the villagers there.
Were you aware of any problems that occurred with the sector military forces during that fighting with Vietnam in late 1977?
Answer. I could not grasp hold of the situation well.
Mr. President, I'd like at this time to show the witness and ask him about some excerpts from the May to June 1978 Revolutionary Flag, which is document E3/727, originally IS 11.14. And I have two excerpts that I'm going to ask him about. The first is at Khmer ERN 000645559, English 00185-326, and French ERN 00524-453. The second excerpt from the same document is Khmer ERN 000645777, English ERN 00185-341, and French00524-468. I have a copy of the document for the witness and would also request to put the document on the screen.
The President, you may proceed. Court officer, could you take the document from the prosecutor and deliver it to the witness for him to examine?
There are two parts of this document that I would like to read to you and ask you questions about. The first part is at Khmer, page 64559, and it is in a part of the revolutionary flag issue where they are describing treason among the Democratic Kampuchea military forces that was believed to have taken place during the military encounters with Vietnam. And the quote I would like to read from that page reads as follows, quote, "Among the units of organization of the East, one battalion in every regiment was assigned to attack us from behind, and in each district a company was assigned to attack us from behind too. It was the same over in Kretchi." And later in this same issue of revolutionary flag, if we turn to Khmer page 64577, the revolutionary flag contains the following statement. On page, again, 64577, the revolutionary flag stated as follows, quote, "We have smashed the traitorous leading apparati throughout the country together with their faction. Concretely, the traitorous forces in the east, northwest, and west zones, in Phnom Penh, in 103, in Karachi, and in Sector 25.
The President, could you slow down and repeat the last segment that you quote for the interpretation?
Yes, the second excerpt from this revolutionary flag reads as follows, quote, "We have smashed the traitorous leading apparati throughout the country, together with their faction. Concretely, the traitorous forces in the east, northwest, and west zones, in Phnom Penh, in 103, in Karachi, and in Sector 25. The question I have for you, Mr. Young Kim, do you recall hearing at any point that the reason for the purges of cadres in Karachi in early 1978 was that as a result of the military conflict that occurred with Vietnam, the party leaders had concluded that there were traitorous networks in the sector who were connected to the Vietnamese? Did you ever hear that from anyone?
The President, Mr. Witness, please hold. The chamber will hear the objection by the defense counsel first. Defense counsel, you may proceed. Counsel, thank you, Mr. President. The prosecutor just delivered a document to the witness. I would like the president to reinforce the practice in assistance, that is, whether to inquire first with the witness if he has seen such a document. Overruled. Mr. Witness, you can respond to the question. This is not in a similar situation in the past. There are some facts related to the Kachin sector and also in relation to the armed conflict occurred between the forces of the DK regime and Vietnam. Answer. Regarding the above matter, that is the armed conflict in sector 505, because my district, that is my Sambo commune, is far away from the provincial town, so I could not grasp hold of the situation occurring there. And that is all.
One last question on this subject before I turn to the final areas I'm going to talk to you about. Did you ever hear the cadres and new leaders who came in to replace the sector cadres and district cadres who've been arrested? Did they ever say anything about why their predecessors had been arrested?
Answer. The common situation during the DK regime is that after the arrest, the new ones would come to replace, and the ones who were arrested would be accused of being traitors, and then the new one would be replaced by another new group, and that group would also accuse the old one of being traitorous.
You knew many of the people who were arrested. Did you believe that any of them were actually traitors?
Answer. I understand that not everyone was a traitor because I used to live with them. For example, with Mr. Pan, Mr. Ni. From my observation, they were very good people. In particular, Mr. Pan, he was exemplary in carrying out his task in the commune, in the area. So not everyone was a traitor. The accusation of them being a traitors was was difficult for me to comprehend, because I myself was also concerned about my safety, and I was vigilant and careful. But I don't believe that everyone was a traitor. I refer to those who were arrested. There could be some mistakes made.
I'd like to turn now to the period where you were at the B3 work site, which you've indicated you were transferred to become the chief of a youth group at the B3 site in June 1978. And now you've told us already that the B3 site had previously been used to detain cadre prisoners. How is it that you had learned that the B3 site was used as a detention place for cadre prisoners?
Answer. Regarding B3, I could not fully grasp the situation. However, cadres who were accused of being traitors were gathered up and placed at B3. I did not know the plan for them being gathered up there, and I did not know when they were sent there. Initially, I did not know the existence of B3. Only at the time that I was called, that I was told I would be appointed to be chief of B3, then I realized the existence of B3, and I was told that some cadres from the commune, the district levels were gathered up and placed at B3. So I was not clear of the existence of B3 before my arrival there.
And you've told us that when you were asked to take over B3, that it had been under the control of the military. What I wanted to ask you is, was B3 under the control of the military the entire time that it was used as a detention office for cadre prisoners?
Answer. Regarding B3, for the cadres who were regarded as prisoners, they were under the management of another group. However, later on, when they were removed and Jews were brought in, then they were under the control of the military under Sarant. But Sarant could not administer and manage the male and female youth because he was of a military nature. The production was stalled. For that reason, I was transferred from the cooperative to replace Sarant. And when I arrived at that place, Sarant was not there. I did not know what a Sarant looked like. I only knew that Sarant was a former military who was managing the area before my arrival.
And when you arrived at the B3 site, can you describe the site for us a little bit? Was this a large site?
Answer. Let me tell you a little bit about B3. Upon my arrival at B3, there were 4 hectares of a rice field plot, and I was instructed to make 100 hectares by June 78. So to clear 100 hectares of farmland by June 78. And we did not have sufficient tools. We only have axes and hoes. And I was very concerned that I could not fulfill the quota as the land had not been cleared. So I requested that ironsmith were to be brought in, 3 ironsmiths to be brought in to make tools for us. And after 10 days, with their help, we started to work. And I also requested for elephants, either 30 or 40 elephants to clear the land. And then they gave me 12 elephants. And then we cleared more than 40 hectares of land. And actually I asked the villagers to assist in clearing the land, and then the elephants will have tow away the stems of the trees, for instance. So that was the first time that we worked closely with a group of elephants to clear the land. So the thing is that if we require some tools or something, we put a request and then they will provide it to us. And in 1978, due to heavy flooding, a lot of Jews were requested to help, and there were less forces with us, including the sick. And that I could not clear the land as I was instructed to. So then I requested for additional forces to clear the land. because all the youth and all the youth forces from the commune and cooperatives were gathered up.
Now, my colleague has already asked you earlier today, and you've testified about how a group of around 200 youths were transferred from Tra Mun sub-district at one point to B3 and then later taken away. What I wanted to ask you is the youths that came from Tra Mun sub-district, where was that located? What district and what zone was Tra Mun in?
Answer regarding Tra Mun commune. It was located in Memut district, Kampong Cham province. It was near the Vietnamese border. I did not know the commune myself, but when I was on the road driving past through it, I noticed the sign indicating that it was the Tra Mun commune.
And was that part of the East Zone?
Answer: yes, Tra Mun was in the East Zone.
And could you tell us when this large group of youths were transferred to the B3 site from the East Zone, what were you told as to the reason they had been sent there?
Answer: regarding the sending of the youth, many of them were female youth to B3 from Tra Mun commune. I did not know the clear reason, but to me, as I observed, they were skinny, they were malnutrition. Many of the parents of the youth were also sent to live in Sambo district. Initially, the parents arrived first, and then the male and female youth arrived, and the youth stayed with my group. I was told that the youth from the Tra Mun commune, that is from the East Zone, to come and stay at my site. And later on, they were requested to be sent away, but I did not know where they were sent to.
You stated in your OCIJ interview, and I believe this morning, that it was alleged that those youth had allied themselves with the Vietnamese. Who was it that told you that they had allied themselves with the Vietnamese?
Answer: the information was from the districts there, because the youth stay close to the Vietnamese, then they allied themselves with the Vietnamese.
And how long were they at the B3 work site before they were taken away?
Answer: the youths who came to stay at the B3 work site, they stayed there for not longer than 3 months. They arrived in probably August, and by October they all left.
Thank you, Mr. Yun Kim. I have one final area that I would like to ask you about, and that is relating to another S-21 document that records 22 prisoners from Sector 505, mostly the commune and cooperative chiefs who entered S-21 late in the regime, all on the same date, on the 27th of December 1978, just a little more than a week from the fall of the regime. And Mr. President, this is document D108/26.280. The pages that contain this list of 22 prisoners from Sector 505 is at Khmer 000-86833 through 86834, and English ERN 00789-508 through 510. I would like to provide a copy of the document to the witness. We can show it on the screen also, but I would like the witness to look at the names of these people and tell us whether he recognizes any of the people on this list.
President, you may proceed. Court officer, could you take the hard copy from the prosecutor for the witness to examine?
Mr. Young Kim, what I'd like you to do, maybe you've already started, is just to read through that list of 22 names of people from Sector 505, and then tell us whether you recognize any of the names on that list.
Answer. Amongst all the names, I know one person, Sambat, from Sambok commune.
Do you recall hearing in late 1978 that a number of commune and cooperative chiefs in Karachi had been arrested? Do you recall that?
Answer. I heard about the arrest of the sector committee. Then many people were also arrested at Mokre village, at the Samboka commune, and at other communes as well. As at my Sambo commune, after the that event, nothing really happened.
ខ្ញុំសូមអមតែប៉ុណ្ណឹង
That is all.
And in that same document, on a earlier page, if you would turn to 00086-832, which is English page 789-507. The S21 list identifies the following two people: a Hun Yang, who is identified as the Secretary of Kretchi District, who entered on the 12th of December 1978, and a person named Chum Chin, alias Pound, the Secretary of Snool District, who entered S21 on the same date, the 12th of December 1978. Did you know either of these two persons?
Answer: I do not know these two individuals, but heard of the name of the individual by the name of Ye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Young Kim. I have no further questions. I know these are difficult matters to talk about, and I appreciate your answering our questions today. Thank you very much. Mr. President, members of the bench, we have no further questions.
The President. Thank you very much. Thank you, witness, also. Mr. Yun Kim, your testimony is not yet complete. The Chamber would like to hear your testimonies tomorrow, starting from 9 o'clock. Duty Counsel for the witness is also invited to come back again during tomorrow's session and the following day. Court officer is now instructed to coordinate with West Sui unit to ensure that Mr. Witness is well accommodated and have him return to the courtroom tomorrow before 9 a.m. The hearing session today comes to an end. The court will adjourn and the next session will be resumed tomorrow, commencing at 9 a.m. During tomorrow's session, the questions will be put to Mr. Yun Kim by counsels for the civil party, and perhaps other questions would also be put by the defense counsels. Security personnel are now instructed to bring all the 3 accused persons to the detention facility and have them return to the courtroom by 9 a.m. except Mr. Ieng Sari, if he shows the same position as he does in waiving his right to participate directly in the courtroom through his waiver before the commencement of tomorrow's session. Then the Chamber will instruct the security personnel to communicate with the greffier of the trial chamber to only bring the accused person Ieng Sari to the holding cell where he can observe the proceedings from there. The waiver will be examined before the commencement of that hearing. The court is adjourned.
សូមជើងក្រងចោល